Here we are, rolling along on this, is it Thursday? I don't know. Does post-Jim Boeheim Day, is that a day of the week? We might need to add an 8th day of the week for first day where Jim Boeheim is no longer the head basketball coach for Syracuse. Since the spring of 1976, it's been a minute. 47 years it's a long time. It's a long time. We bring on another one of Jim's former players right now. It's certainly been a long time as we bring on Etan Thomas here. Etan, welcome in. Well, what hits you? What hits you on a day like this? A day that's been a long time coming, but it's still strange to say out loud at this point.
Oh, it definitely is. There was a lot of speculation, a lot of people talking about what might happen. Then you had the press conference, and it was a little bit unclear where everything was. You know what I mean? What did my man say? Clear as mud. That's pretty much that was an accurate description. And then later on, the news came down, so it definitely was shocking for everybody. But hey, it's the end of an era. I definitely think, as I tweeted, that the NCAA needs to give him his wins back. I don't think that should even be a question. But yeah, I think it was a great hire in Red Autry. You know, he was a player's coach. He relates to the players. Of course, everybody's going to wait to see how he does moving into the head seat. But I think that the program is going to be fine. But I think that Boeheim deserves all his flowers for these next period of time for the career that he has. 47 years is a really long time, so he definitely deserves flowers.
Yeah, Etan, obviously yesterday was awkward. I don't think any would have hoped it would have quite gone down like things went down yesterday. But maybe, you've known Jim for a long time. Was it always going to be a little awkward at the end? It doesn't feel like Jim's a guy to go out quietly, right, without a little fight left in him.
Well, he's kind of said over and over again he has no plans to retire.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he kind of made that clear. He's someone who wanted to keep coaching. I remember I interviewed him once, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I asked him if his plan was to coach, to retire after his sons left. And what he said to me, he was like, I don't know why people keep asking me that. He's like, I'm not here to coach my sons, I'm here to coach the team. And that's just his passion. That's what if you do something for almost 50 years, you know what I mean? That it's understandable for it to be difficult to step away. But yeah, nobody really thought that the way that it did transpire, that's the way that it would have transpired. But, that was up to Syracuse.
And Etan, we had Chris Joseph on earlier. We had Gene Waldron earlier. So we're kind of hitting different eras of Syracuse hoops. Obviously, you played between when those two would have played. So you've been out of it now for 23 years. What has your relationship been like? Take me to, freshman Etan when you're coming in, to senior Etan when you're the scorer, to now, when you're 20 years out and you're dealing with Jim. What's been that transition for your relationship with Coach Boeheim over the years?
Well, it's different for everybody, and as you've seen, you talk to different people have different experiences. I didn't come in like Derek Coleman and Lawrence Moulton, where I was starting as a freshman. You know what I mean? That's or so everybody knows that when you're not starting off in that circle, it's a little bit of a different experience, in the beginning. And so, it grew into, a lot of hard work, a lot of, understand I got a great relationship with Coach Orr, learned a lot from Bernie Fine. He was the big man coach. And it was just a grind, over the years. But one thing about the Coach Boeheim that he always did was he treated you like a professional. And it was like, okay, I'm going to tell you what you need to do, and either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. It's kind of up to you. And that was something where, some guys could handle that, some guys couldn't throughout the years. But he really taught you how it was going to be, because that's how it is in the NBA. They tell you what you're going to do, and they're not going to hold your hand. Either you're going to do it or you're not. And if you don't, then they'll get somebody else to put in that spot. So, he really treated it like a business. But, Yeah, I mean, 47 years. That's a lot of different experiences.
Yeah, for those that don't remember back in the day, like Etan's freshman year, that's what Otis Hill's senior year. So, there was a guy that had been here a minute in your spot and had to work your way in. And then, the idea of treating you like a pro, like by your senior year, like you guys are, having a great season and like you're leading the way, you and Jason Hart and Ryan Blackwell. How different is the experience then when he's coaching you and you're the big guys on the team and you're making it happen?
Oh, it's completely different, and he allows the upperclassmen to lead in the way that they lead. And we had a great group, and the three that you just named, and it was great. And then he always has had really, really great assistants. And when I talk about that, as far as the connection that they have with the players, both on and off the floor, the working out at different hours. See, this is before we didn't have the Mello Center back then.
Right.
You know what I mean? But now they have the Mello Center. They can go in there at 1 o'clock in the morning if they want to, no problem. But we would have to we would go to different gyms, turn off the lights would be out. We'd get a workout, we talk. I would talk with Coach Ora a lot. He had really good assistants who really were able to, bring the best out of players and also, push them through difficult times. Because you had difficult times when you weren't in that inner circle. You mentioned how, Otis Hill, and I got a year to learn from a great center.
Mm-hmm.
But being on the outside end, like I said, it's a little bit of a process. But, it was a absolutely great experience. And I wish them the best, but I'm really excited to see what happens with Syracuse moving forward in the new era with Red Autry and what he brings to the table. And I've heard so many positive things about him. So it's going to, right now it's like what's going to happen to Syracuse type of a thing that I see online. Mm-hmm. And, just to reassure everybody listening, you don't have to panic. I think it's going to be fine. Red Autry has a great relationship with players. He's recruited so many. So he's responsible for so many different people even being at Syracuse. You have to just look at the list and you'll see. I mean, I know a lot is still left to be seen, but you have to hit the panic button right now.
Yeah, hey, Etan, this is Sports Talk Radio. This is our business. We panic. This is what we do.
I hear you. I get it.
This is what we got.
I get it.
But what is the main challenge here for Red? Because it's one thing to take over a program. It's another thing to take over a program like Syracuse, and then add in taking over for a Hall of Famer like Jim Boeheim. What is the challenge for Red here going forward? Where in some way you got to be you, right? But on the other hand, you have to keep some of what made the program special.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that it's difficult, initially because you're following an icon. You know what I mean? Like when Coach K stepped down, or you know what I mean, whoever, like Bobby Knight, or you're following, you know what I mean, John Wooden, some iconic coach, and then you're coming into that space, and you have to carve out your own niche, and that's what happens. I remember when Jim Calhoun stepped down, and I believe that was right when Kevin Ollie came right after that, and he had to make it his own. You know what I mean? He had to create a new identity, and he had to definitely, give respect to Coach Calhoun and everything like that. Repeatedly, but he had to make it his own. And that's kind of what, Coach Autry has to do and be able to get the tools, have all the tools to be able to make it his own. And he's a great recruiter. You know what I mean? Him and Jerry McNamara and Alan Griffin, they do a great job with recruiting. And you're going to see it's a little bit different now because things are a little bit more settled. There was so much that was left up in the air. It was such a big question mark. So I'm sure a lot of the hesitation with different recruits was, okay, well, who's going to be the coach? Yeah. You know what I mean? In a year or two, nobody knew. Everybody was a big question mark. So, of course, that would make a lot of people kind of nervous about, committing to a program where you don't know the direction that it's going. So now that you know the direction, I think that will just improve on some of the recruiting. But let me just say, I like all the young guys that we have. I like the freshman class. You know what I mean? I was happy to see Benny start playing well towards the end, especially that last game. I don't know what's going to happen with that fifth COVID year for, some of the guys. But I like the young class and the young talent that we have. So, I know sometimes this season things didn't look that great, but we have guys that are capable, so it's just a matter of putting it all together and, starting a new era.
Yeah, and I mentioned that Etan Thomas with us. That's more than none of what went into the timing of all this. Like the transfer portal opens on Monday, so you want those guys back next year. You got to make sure the chairs are arranged on the deck in the proper way to get everybody back for next year. And Etan, this has nothing to do with the Jim, I guess a little bit or anything now, but you've mentioned his name a couple of times. We haven't had you on since sadly Louis Orr passed. What are your memories of Louis? You mentioned him obviously affecting your time at Syracuse so much. What do you take away from your life of knowing Louis Orr?
Oh my God, Coach Orr, that was my guy. I mean, we would just talk, we would just work out, we would have, he provided guidance, nurturing, discipline, I can just go down the list. And, he pushed me at times when I was frustrated. You had the freshman blues. Yeah. You're away from home. It's cold. Because Mayon's yelling at you. You know what I mean? It's just, you just had the freshman blues, and he just pushed me to keep working, to keep the right mind state, staying hungry, not getting frustrated. And we just talked sometimes. Like sometimes we would just go someplace and we would sit on the court and we would just talk. And that kind of thing, it's so important for it. Because remember, you're talking about a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid. You know what I mean? So you're still learning, figuring out how to, push through adversity, all those different things. And Coach Orr just did a great job with me personally, with really just, everything in all aspects. So, yeah, no, that was a really difficult, when he passed, that was a tough one for me.
All right, I just wanted to get your thoughts there on Etan since we hadn't talked, and he was such an important guy in the history of Syracuse basketball. On a day like this, your thoughts could go everywhere. I know all of these guys that were for 47 years played for the same guy, but great to chat with you, Etan, and I'm sure we'll be talking again before too long. Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, thanks for having me on.
That is Etan Thomas. I'm saying, Etan, next guy to get his jersey retired? Should we start a rumor? I have no influence in this whatsoever, but we were talking about that the other day. I think he's got to be shortlist. Like, if you're thinking the next guy, him, Stevie, who's next? Who's next? Put him on the list. Yeah, there we are. Good to hear from Etan Thomas. Yeah, it's easy to remember, or easy to forget, I guess, that Etan did not actually start as a freshman. You think of the great career he had and all the shots he blocked with that left hand of his. Has anyone heard this? Did this ever come up in a television broadcast of Syracuse basketball that right-handed Etan Thomas blocked shots with his left hand? Did that ever come up? Etan and the guys Big Monday beating UConn, staying undefeated in the Dome in 2000. That's one of them good Syracuse Jim Boeheim memories. That's one of the good ones. Great to hear from Etan. With that, we'll take our final break in this hour, brought to you by William Matar. Hurt in a car, call William Matar at 444-4444. We're back with What's on Tap, final wrap, final thoughts of the day. Many more thoughts to come tomorrow, but we'll put the wraps on this one when we come back after this. It's QSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio.